evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hessami. I'm the chairman of the board of trustees of Bicdo, British-Iranian Community Development Organization. And it's my absolute pleasure to invite and welcome all of you who have taken time and effort to join this learning and sharing event, which we would really like to share with you the outcome of the work that we've been doing, and in principle also give you the space to share with us and with the audience the magnificent community-related work that most of you do. That's why you're here. When we started, we spent a lot of time soul-searching and finding our raison d'etre, our mission. And because we are a grassroots organization, we're not affiliated with any other organization in terms of funding or in terms of association or support, we had to devise a strategy as well as come up with some model of governance. We need to have sufficient understanding of how we govern as a community organization to gain the trust of the community. As you can see from the pictorial representation of the Code of Good Governance, any charitable organization, not-for-profit organization, needs to understand the leadership, intent, and roles of leadership. It needs to ensure that it's delivering its purpose. It needs to work effectively. It needs to exercise effective control on its actions and processes. It needs to behave with integrity, and it needs to be accurate and open and accountable. We assessed ourselves against all of these, and you can imagine, as a new startup, so to speak, in a community sense, we did have shortfalls which have become the basis of some of the corrective mechanisms. And to embark on our plan and be able to deliver some of those aspirations and policies and strategies, we decided that without understanding the nature of needs of our community, it would be impossible to actually do sufficient good. So before starting to prescribe what needs to be done for our community to be cohesive, rejuvenated, help it find its rightful place in the United Kingdom's socio-economic environment, we decided to conduct a survey, and you would hear from my colleagues and members of the board later what the outcome of that survey is.
From the outset, we knew that we couldn't possibly give a voice to the community without understanding its needs and aspirations. We also knew that for project development, you would need a point of reference. You would need to be able to say what the need is. The very first question, one of the very first questions that every funder asks you in a funding application is, how do you know there's a need for your project? So we thought by doing this survey, we could also give a project development and fundraising tool to the community. So with this in mind, we devised a 24-question questionnaire based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from the very basic needs like housing, financial, health, to the more sophisticated and more complex aspirations like cultural integration and representation. Then with the help of our two lovely volunteers, Maryam Ruhi and Bahman Chahardehi, who really were behind this project wholeheartedly, we approached all community organizations, talks, lectures, plays, elderly centers, and tried to cover the whole range of community to be able to get as much response as possible. And in fact, we got 470 8 responses, which is the largest of its kind. I think the largest we had before this was the survey conducted by Professor Sreberny and Dr. Gholami at SOAS, which came to just over 150. So this was great achievement for us. We knew, when we started the survey, we knew that SurveyMonkey wouldn't work with Iranians. They needed to see faces, ask questions, and trust. So this is the way we approached data collection. Then the data was kindly put on a spreadsheet by the help of Elnaz Amiri, Ashkan Amiri, and Parham, Bicdo youth, basically. And then the data was given raw. We didn't want to interfere with the data because we didn't want to impose our presuppositions on it. So we provided Dr. Masoumeh Torfe of SOAS. We thought she's a research associate at both SOAS and LSE, to write it up academically and independently, which was important for us. So we decided to share, and we had actually in mind to share it with you. The whole project was about sharing it with you. Thank you very much, everybody. This belongs to all of us.
When they approached me to join them by Sahbajun, I wasn't sure as a journalist what can I do for the community which is good for this organization. And it turned out to be very good, to be honest. And when I realized what they're doing, I mean, immediately I started to appreciate the job and do my job as good as I can do. The darkness. I hope this chandelier of Bicdo always shines. And thanks each and every one of you to...
We're actually very, very proud to embark on this research capacity building. This is very much about building capacity to do research. But this is a very long-term effort. It's not short-term at all. Now, Bicdo aims, as we've already mentioned, very much to share its findings with everybody, all groups and individuals. And so dissemination is very, very important to us, and it's a central tenet in our work, which we're very proud of, and hope tonight is a testament of that particularly. This is a nice word-out representation, which is actually, it corresponds very directly with the percentage of the responses that we got back from the participants. And as you can see, it quite clearly highlights financial issues and housing issues as basic set of needs, very prominently there, and that shows up in that. But also some few other very interesting stuff are in there as well, which I'd just like to run through as well. So there is, this is by the way in your report, but there is a cluster of findings that you will find other than the very prominent ones that we looked at, which are housing and financial issues among people. There are a few other clusters of information, which is social issues about social cohesion or lack of social cohesion that exists and integration, cultural issues that exist, if I can find it, there it is, English language being an issue amongst people, and political representation in there as well. And isolation and loneliness, I think that's another key one, which I think, but these things form a cluster that kind of tell us something meaningful by themselves. And they're kind of interrelated issues, they're connected. These elements can impact on those elements themselves that I've just highlighted in terms of cultural and social integration and stuff like that, that actually compound the problems of other basic needs like housing and financial and so on that exist, and medical as well. And some of these issues might stand alone, some people might think, but we don't think that they would stand alone. So a lot more work is probably needed there to understand that. Dr. Torfe, in her report, has made recommendations for the future for us to take forward. Recently, we've had some research activity, including the work done at SOAS. We've gained a great deal of insight in building research capacity to either do research ourselves or to commission research with the help of others. And we can certainly share that knowledge with other people if they're interested. Professor Sami has already highlighted that at the end, hopefully by the end of today, hopefully we will get a lot more. Please be engaging in that. If not today, afterwards. So we hope that this event and afterwards you engage openly with us, and we look to our collective collaboration and hope that we can work together to mark Iranians more prominently on the map of the British society. Thank you very much. This was just a whistle-through tour.
We got the message from the chair of the National Resource Center for Supplementary Education, who's here, Mrs. in GCSE and A-level were under threat, and in fact the OCR, who was the board that was providing this qualification, was cutting out some of the languages due to monetary savings that they needed to make, and Farsi was one of them. Exams, the qualifications in Persian would have tremendous effects, negative consequences for these children, but also for the community. For example, the children would stop going to Farsi schools, and that would actually be quite deprived of the opportunity for linking with their country of origin. A lot of what we do in the community language schools, in all of these, are linking with our cultures, and the children would actually lose that. The understanding community, and we were learning from Bicdo in that sense. So we contacted a lot of people, and many people offered help to us. We had Bicdo, we had the British-Iranian Chamber of Commerce, that helped us tremendously. We had the BBC Persian, Kehan Online helped us a tremendous amount. Mr. Sabunchi is here, thank you. They helped us tremendously. Manoto interviewed one of us, and SOAS gave us tremendous amount of help as well. So we were galvanizing people, and the most important outcome was that the Association of Iranian Farsi Schools formed. And there were 5 of us who were actually 8 of us. First of all was Andishe and Rusting the Sig. And we actually got an appointment, and we were about to go to the Prime Minister's to number 10. And we had, all the schools had got all the EdExcel of Pearson's in May 2016, announced the day before we were going to the Prime Minister's door that they will actually offer the GCSE and A-level Persian, but providing that we would help them with providing people who could write the papers and syllabuses, etc., and that we would have numbers of children to be increased. And that was very, very important, not only because of the money that they would be. So since May, we've been very, very active. We've been offering of these children. So we have now got into a new campaign. Our campaign now is to increase the number of children. Last year, we had only 400.
see that very often. I always see, Iranian youth just hang around with themselves and building a network which is just within themselves. It's not within the British community. This is a multicultural society, as is Iran, but for some reason we don't seem to be able to do that here. Without this fundamental tool, we can't be that successful in our industries. I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm a musician. I studied music at the University of Leeds. In a department of 400 to 500 people, guess how many Iranians there were? One. It's me. I'm the only person there. Then you go across the streets. You go to the dental school, for example. You go into the engineering school, which is ransacked and infested by Iranians. And you think to yourself, what is it that we lack that we can't, encourage our children to go into the arts rather than just going to medicine or law or dentistry or these really traditional routes? Why not push your children to go and excel at that rather than, end up becoming dentists like every other Iranian? It baffles me. It really does.
So I took a far more traditional route into law, and I do think I broke my mother's heart a little bit on becoming a brain surgeon, is what she wanted.
As they all do.
As they all do. But that wasn't without its own difficulties. I know that we have a lot of Iranian lawyers, and I've spoken to some of you today. Unfortunately, I don't see very many Iranians in the area of law that I've gone into, so I don't see very many in the big international firms, the American firms and the English firms. And, I've tried my best to look around and try to find mentors within my very specialized field who are Iranians. And there's a lack. And I think part of that issue is that we are still, a lot of us are still first generation or second generation Iranians. But a part of that is also that I think it is easier for an Iranian to set up a law firm where they interact more with other Iranians than to try and integrate within British society. And I'm not saying that's easy at all. I mean, I'm sure the lawyers here know the big law firms are very specific in what they're looking for.
To address the problems that the Iranian youth face in this country, we are setting up a Bicdo youth mentoring program. I think it's safe to say for both of us that if we had a mentor when we were younger within our own industries, a musical mentor for me or a soliciting mentor for ours, we would have been a lot further, but we haven't had that opportunity.
It's great that we have this very close-knit community, and we do communicate within ourselves and we socialize within ourselves. I think a mentor is really good at pushing you outside of those comfort zones a little bit. I'd like to take the opportunity to ask you, from your various industries, to sign up for the mentoring program as mentors, to tell your children about it so they can take advantage of the skills we're trying to get across, and to tell your colleagues and your friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Richard has been MP since 2001 for South Norfolk, and he has, obviously, his interest in politics goes back over 30 years, probably 1970s, and he has, since his election to become an MP, he's been part of the Public Accounts Committee, and as you might appreciate, it is one of the most influential committees in the Parliament, which obviously oversees public spending and various other important issues.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I was a little worried when I was told I was going to be talking to you about the Iranian diaspora and telling you all about it. I have a feeling you know more about that than I do. But it is an enormous pleasure to be here, and it's a thrill for me to see the British Iranian Community Development Organisation doing what it does, because I think it's extremely important for any community that ends up living in a different country and putting down roots and raising children, both to integrate and to keep hold of what's special. Winston Churchill, in one of his books, said years ago, in his autobiography of his young days, it's called My Early Life, it's a wonderful book, he said, don't give your children money, give them horses, because he liked playing polo when he was young. I would say don't give your children money, give them language. I've always had this sense also that the Iranian community is rather good. You may not sense this, and from what I just heard from the young people, perhaps there's a feeling that's not always true. I have a sense, actually, Iranians are rather good at integrating wherever they go, and it's one of the reasons they've been so successful. It's perhaps one of the reasons they don't bang on that much about being Iranian. They just get on with being successful. There is no settled community in the United Kingdom that has a higher percentage of people in highly paid employment other than Iranians. You are number one. You're number one. That doesn't mean you can't do even more. That doesn't mean you can't have more people in Parliament and at the top of business. Of course you can. We now have, since 2015, my colleague Seema Kennedy. She is the Member of Parliament for South Ribble. She's the first Member of Parliament of Iranian descent, and I hope she will be joined by many others. We're just celebrating Chinese New Year here in London. I want us to celebrate Nowruz just as visibly and just as openly. You've got to hold together, look outwards and inwards at the same time. You've got to look towards yourselves and hold hands. You've got to look around your community, reach out to other groups, reach out to the Jewish groups, to the African groups, to everyone else who've also got so much to contribute. And you've got to remember who you are and where you're from and how proud you should be. Oh, I don't need to tell you this, but how proud you can be of everything that your heritage has done over hundreds, not to say thousands of years. Please keep it up. Don't be bashful. And thank you very much for inviting me this evening. Thank you.
اولین گردهمایی بزرگ سازمان‌های خیریه ایرانی لندن و بازار نیکوکاری به ابتکار سازمان بیکدو. یکشنبه 10 دسامبر 2017 ساعت 1 تا 5 بعد از ظهر. سالن برونا گالری، دانشگاه سواز. با سازمان‌های خیریه ایرانی لندن آشنا شوید، مشکلات خود را با آنها در میان بگذارید، از غرفه‌های آنها دیدار کنید و هدیه‌های کریسمس خود را خریداری نمایید. ورود برای همگان آزاد و رایگان. پذیرایی با چای و شیرینی، مهمان مرکز مطالعات ایرانی و خاورمیانه‌ای دانشگاه سواز. موزیک زنده پیمان حیدریان. غرفه‌های کتاب، انتشارات ساتراپ، نشر مهری و هرمز نیکخواه. با حمایت سازمان لاتاری.